Smart strategy, real conversations, bigger margins. This is Chasing the Margin podcast.
Welcome back to Chasing the Margin. Today we have Mr. Mark Auten. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here, man. Thanks for the invite.
So, Mark, tell us a little bit about who you are. I thought about bringing you on the week of Halloween, but it just didn't work out because I thought that would be kind of ironic considering what you do. But give us a background about who you are.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and we're still right around the holiday.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on a big one of the birth of a child, right, too. So that's another big life-changing event, which requires people to talk to me. So, I mean, first and foremost, I'm a father, a husband. I love my family. But outside of that, you know, from a work perspective, I'm a corporate and estate planning attorney. So I help usually a lot of business owners and individuals in general, right, navigate those periods of life where they may not be able to take care of the things that they normally take care of on a daily basis, right? When someone's incapacitated or when someone passes away, I help the family. And ideally, they have good, clean documents in place. And, you know, I tell my clients all the time, the documents are good, they're valid. Don't test them.
Yeah.
Like, stick around, be around, right? But at the end of the day, you know, my approach with what I do in law is really solving problems. So it's multifaceted. It's a holistic approach. Clients call me for a variety of different reasons, and I help them navigate and solve those problems.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to have you on and title it The Grim Reaper - the Estate Planning Attorney.
You know it. You know
thought that would be a funny title.
There's a lot of that, and we all have touched death in any way, right, or in a variety of different ways. And I've just found that grief and greed do some pretty nasty things to families when that occurs. And so ideally, you have something in place ahead of time. People have the instruction manual. Everyone has the same expectations. And that helps mitigate those issues, grief and greed, so then the attorneys don't have to litigate it later.
Yeah.
Right? So mitigate so you don't have to litigate.
Ah, that's a good one. I like that one.
I got a few puns in here.
We'll throw them out there. So let's take it back to kind of prior years and talk about, why did you even choose law in the first place? Maybe that starts way back. Maybe it starts in college. I don't know. But tell me, why exactly did you choose law to pursue?
Yeah, no, great question. And it does. It goes back to my college years. It truly probably stems well before that, but college was the time I redirected myself, as I think many individuals do in college, in finding out who am I going to be, you know? And you already know who you are. It's just figuring out what paths you can pursue. And I took a course. I went to Austin College up in Sherman, Texas. And during the month of January, you take one course. So like for 1 year, I went to Costa Rica to build a house for a family, right? And to do a study abroad, Spanish immersion course, right? But my sophomore year, I took a course called What Career Shape Are You In? And that really opened the door to 3 possible jobs or careers that I could do that, based on who I am as a person, I would find fulfillment out of. I would be happy because it aligns with who I am as a person. And so the top 3 jobs were attorney, pastor, and counselor. And I sat back and just thought, okay, what do all 3 of those have in common? Listening to people and advising, right?
Yeah,
and usually helping them navigate difficult parts of their life. And so I knew no matter what I did, if I did one of those 3 things, I'd be happy doing whatever work I am doing. And so after that, I took a test, the LSAT, Law School Admittance Test, and scored well enough to go, had a GPA well enough to go, said, let's pursue this. So
Cool.
that was my entrance into law school. And then somehow this conversation has come up recently with a number of individuals, probably namely a young man who has reached out for some mentoring. But I was explaining to him, I knew very early in law school what I was going to do, because I took classes in civil procedure and evidence, and my eyes were bleeding, and I was banging my head against the desk. And then I take classes on estate planning, corporate planning, tax planning, and it just came natural.
Yeah.
It was smooth. I was like, I enjoyed this class. So I think I allowed my experiences to dictate what course I was going to go.
Yeah, well, that was very similar to me. Mine was more broad than like a specific area, as yours was specifically in certain types of law. But I took an accounting class during high school, and it was kind of like a random thing. It wasn't really something I had planned on doing.
Mm-hmm.
They were just like, "Hey, you need an extra class. Here's a list of them," and that was one of the ones that kind of I was like, "Okay, well, I guess I could try this." And it was exactly the same type of situation where I got into it, I understood it, it made sense to me, it interested me with how debits and credits work, the weird accountant in me.
The what?
Yeah,
No, I'm just-
yeah, exactly. So I went through that class and I was like, okay, I did pretty good at that, and then picked it up in college, and here we are today. So
Now you're on a podcast. You're hosting a podcast, man.
yeah, I don't know where that came from. That was just a real random thing that came up, I guess. But so awesome. One of the things that I was kind of curious about, because we haven't asked anybody yet, is the study abroad process. I looked it up on LinkedIn and I saw that you studied abroad, and then you also kind of mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
How was that? Was it like a eye-opening experience to be in a different country and studying? Was it kind of just same old, just in a different location? What was it like?
Some of my favorite moments in life, right? Pre-marriage, pre-kids kind of
Yeah.
deal, right? Well, what I call my pre-COVID life. Right? But needless to say, I studied abroad and went abroad 3 different times. And I think the motivating factor for me to do that was I went to all my secondary school was here in Texas. My undergrad was in Texas. My law school was in Oklahoma, which isn't that far away. Right?
Basically Texas.
Basically North Texas. Unless you live in Dallas, then North Texas is above 635.
That's true.
Okay,
That
we all
is
know
true. I
that.
can confirm that.
Yes, yes, you can. So it was just opportunities. Again, I took a January course at Austin College to go down to Costa Rica the first time to live with a family. I became very fluent in Spanish at that time. I am not anymore because I've learned the legal language instead. And if you don't use it, you lose it, kind of deal, right?
Yeah.
But I still have contacts down there. I went back about 8 months later and did a mission abroad. My school, through it's called the Go Fellowship at Austin College, funded me to go to abroad for about 3-4 weeks and help build a house for a family. It was similar to Habitat for Humanity, but in Costa Rica. And I am still today in contact with that family down there, where if I ever went back, they would open their home to me. Right? It's
awesome.
It's a special bond you build when you go do and live out service to others. Right? The law school travel abroad was very different than those 2 experiences. But it was a phenomenal and eye-opening experience to what life is outside of the United States in another, developed and or just semi-developed nation, right? So I went to China and this was, again, 2012 timeframe, so 13-ish years ago over the summer, and spent a month abroad and worked inside of a law firm over there. My luggage did not make it the first week. So you got to think of, when you're making first impressions in people and you show up to this, very high, powerful law firm that you're going to be spending 4 weeks working at, helping them with English translations, English contracts, things of that nature, a lot of transactional work, purchase and sale agreements, because the whole premise of the study abroad at that point was international business transactions, which I thoroughly enjoyed doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, you walk in the first day and you're wearing jeans and a T-shirt because that's what you traveled with coming abroad. And luckily, I had an extra bag and did a little shopping. But it was such a fun experience to get to meet some individuals over there from the law firm, get to learn more about the culture and how different our 2 countries are from our roots.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And who we believe people are at their roots, and how that has changed the legal landscape of the country, right? Because over here, if you want a short contract, it's probably not going to have the things you actually need,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's because handshake deals stopped being handshake deals.
Mm-hmm.
And so the approach is very different in the two countries. And I'm sure it has changed drastically in the last decade since I've been there. But it was a fun experience. Got to know a lot of great people, traveled abroad, saw the hospital system firsthand. So, wasn't surprised what happened with COVID happened over there so rapidly, irrespective of the number of people. But, U.S. hospitals are cleaner than some I saw over there. So
that's interesting. So do you think it also kind of gave you a completely different perspective of maybe not everybody's life is exactly like it is here in America and things are a lot different in different countries?
100%. 100%. I mean, especially the Costa Rica experiences. And I did a lot of habitat here in the United States through my youth and the like, but that one single-handedly really changed perspective. And the China trip humbled me in thinking that I'm not going to live forever, right? I had a real bad appendix kind of thing go on, and it was not like identified, whereas here it was identified super fast, right? And that's, I'm not talking about anything necessarily with their medical side or whatnot, but it was those life events where all of a sudden you're faced with a reality, which I think that allows me to relate with my clients' reality of what they're going through and having to plan for their inevitable death and having to accept that we do. And a lot of people struggle with that, I think.
Yeah. So let's jump into what exactly you do and have all kinds of good questions for you. So a lot of the guests that listen are self-employed individuals. Some of them, have been in business for a long time and have all kinds of things in place with plans. Some of them are just now getting into it. So got all ends of the spectrum here. But, people say trust, estate planning, all these, words that are in your area of expertise. And a lot of times it's like, well, wealthy people set up estates, they set up trust, they do all these things, but not everybody knows exactly what an estate attorney does or what the reason behind what you do is. So give us like a general explanation of why people need to have an estate plan.
Definitely. To me, there are certain certainties in life. Death, taxes, flirting with nuclear war, right? But again, it's something that we can't avoid yet, but we want to avoid. It's a psychological component of it too. And I think a lot of people what I hear most of the time is, I didn't know where to start. I don't know whether I need a will or do I need a trust. I own a business. Who's the next in line? Like, how do I wrestle with if something does occur to me, who actually can go run payroll? Who knows how to access the different components of my business in order to make sure my workforce and my labor sticks around, right? Because I've been in instances where companies had great value, but an individual passed and no one was there to step in, and that company lost all its value. The family lost all of because most business owners, their wealth is tied up in their business. And so if we don't create a consistent plan, you're shooting yourself in your foot. But even for individuals, right? Non-business owner individuals, to me, the families that have set up a plan, their families that they leave behind are grateful that they've actually did something, because now they're not panicking. Now they know where to go look for the accounts, who to go talk to, what is the process. They have the advisors around them that can help them navigate death. And again, grief and greed, right? have I talked to you about grief and greed?
Talk to us about it.
So when the grim reaper comes, everyone, no matter, I really don't think, even if you were the holiest individual alive in the world, you will grieve and you will be greedy at some point. And it's navigating that grief and greed. And families that I've seen that say, oh, I'm supposed to get this, I'm supposed to get that. The matriarch or patriarch didn't set the right expectation. And so the family suffered and their relationship suffered. I don't think any parent has the intent of leaving a legacy to kids where the kids don't talk to each other anymore.
Yeah. Have you ever had a time where, I always feel like thank yous are not always something that comes around, because normally you hear the problems, you don't always hear the thank yous. But have you ever had an experience where you helped a client set up a trust, or an estate plan, and then it kind of made everything go smoothly and there weren't any issues, and then some of the descendants come back and say, hey, Mark, like, thank you for setting all this up and making life easier, because I agree with you. Like, we see the ugly side of people when there's not a plan in place, and it's hard.
Yep. One of my favorite clients, who was just a great guy, right? Great guy. His wife had died. He was a single individual at that point, or widow. And we became close friends, and would see each other periodically. And he always just came to my office with a check, tried to pay me every time, and I wouldn't take it because I just enjoyed hearing about his life, his story. And we got his plan set up, and he since then has passed away, and his daughter came and went through all of his stuff. He had everything organized for her. There were some bumps in the road, like with anything, just things that didn't get tied up as clean as they should have ahead of time, right? And that was outside of necessarily my control, but he left me a note. He left me a handwritten note that she gave to me and said he wanted you to have this. And it was just the gratefulness he had, and then subsequently now she has, for the work that I've done for them, their family, and trying to help them in that period of transition. So it is rare.
Yeah.
So say thank you to your attorney every now and then. No, we're fine. But really, it's just about paying the invoice, okay? No, I'm just but no, there have been those highlights in my career, and I think those are motivators to know that what we're providing, the service we're providing, is better than what you can find online.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree. I think that, like, a handwritten note, when I get one from a client, or, we try to send them out to people in return the favor, I think it makes a big difference, because so few people do handwritten notes now. Everybody's trying to minimize the amount of time that they're spending on whatever it is that they're spending, and a handwritten note's probably the most time-consuming way to communicate to somebody. And I think, it definitely pulls at my heartstrings. You're going to make me emotional on the podcast talking about a handwritten note from one of your clients.
Right. And I've had those that just brought cookies during the holidays, right? Some that I haven't talked to in years, right? I have like a Halloween bin that client brought me cookies in that's still at my house that I bring out every Halloween.
Yeah.
Right? Now my kids are putting candy in, and we're putting cookies in it, right?
Yeah.
So it's those memories to clients that at that time I probably didn't know the impact I was having on them in their life. And in return, I didn't realize the impact they were having on me in my life. Because I'm not talking about a whole bunch of income tax planning considerations, right? Kind of X's and O's, numbers and cents.
Right.
This is raw. It's people being vulnerable enough with someone that maybe they've met one time, maybe two times, before they start really doing in-depth planning, and having to disclose every now and then, probably more than should be, but every now and then, those family dynamics that when we all have them. And I always tell people, if you don't know who it is in the family, it's probably you, right?
Yeah.
And so most people can identify the family members, right? But needless to say, it's one where when we're able to help a family navigate that decision of who makes the decisions, right? And this is mostly for non-business owners. Business owners have the extra layer of who runs my business. My husband is not able to step in and run this business because he knows nothing about the business, and vice versa. The kids, one kid may be heavily involved in the business, and they're going to be running the business going forward. And that plan may be in place, but they share in profits with their other two siblings. So this one's doing all the work, but the other two get all the reward without putting any work in. How do you balance that?
Yeah.
And how do you advise a client so that they can make an informed decision?
Yeah. It's hard, because that's the thing, is you're embracing people's humanity and the inevitability, like you said, that eventually this is going to be needed at some point. Even if it's 80 years down the road, at some point this is going to be needed.
Yep.
And having to deal with all those complexities is so difficult. So, what exactly is it that you talk with people and tell them at this point in your life you need a will, estate plan? Is it like a net worth number? Is it a total asset number? Is it just owning a house? Like, at what point do you tell people this is when you should start really considering setting up all this stuff?
Great question. I get hit with that most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my favorite lawyer answer, Troy. It depends. All right?
It always depends.
It always depends. But there's no truer statement when the client asks those questions. And I'm a firm believer that education allows the client to make the decision with sometimes my recommendations involved. And usually I have a recommendation. But if I just spout off, oh, a will is fine. A trust is what you need, right? I'm, one, not educating them on what those are and why they are important. And two, I'm not figuring out who they are and what internal dynamics of their family are relevant to the decisions that we're going to be making. Right now, if you come in and you're worth $50 million, you're going to have a trust and you're probably going to have a couple, right?
Yeah.
Unless you like to donate to the IRS. Haven't found that person yet. So every circumstance is different. And that's how the joy of my practice is I get to enjoy the differences in my clients, which brings me the joy in return, because every client scenario is different from a planning and how creative we need to do, what problems are we solving, especially with the business owner clients, as you know, it's variety in between. But I always start every conversation with usually asking the client, why are we here today? What do you want to know? What questions have you not been able to answer yourself? Or what do you want for certainty of this is what it is? That usually always circles back to, okay, well, what's a will? What's a trust? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times that's where I start. And to me, I try to keep things simple, not so esoteric, mm-hmm. where you get wrapped up in minutia at that point, right? But at a baseline, I like to set the floor of, I guess I'll do it. A will and a trust say and do the exact same thing. They're going to tell everyone out in the world, this is where your property goes, and then this is who's in control. The difference between a will and the trust is the fact that a will go through probate. So if one of your goals in your life is to avoid probate, you should be open to the conversation of setting up a trust, irrespective of where your net worth is, mm-hmm. right? Now, I have clients all the time that come in where a trust does not make economic sense. Okay?
Because is there a dollar threshold, or like at what point does it not make sense anymore?
So usually it comes down to two factors. One, how much are we going to be leaving to the next generation, let's say, right? The second one is, who are we leaving it to? And do we have concerns of the inheritance coming down vertically but then going horizontal?
Okay. So like grandchildren and stuff horizontal, is that what you mean by that? Or
so in a way, yes, because I'm a soon-to-be parent of 3, mm-hmm. right? Okay, really any time now. So
this could be a short podcast.
Yeah, right? No, my phone's silent. I won't know. So no, I'm just kidding. Either event. So let's say you have $500,000. You're leaving it between 2 kids. One kid's great, one kid's fantastic. The other kid has financial security issues, drug issues, alcohol issues, marriage issues. Mm. So if you leave an inheritance to someone, yes, it's considered their separate property. But over time, we start blending that separate property with our spouses, right? That happened when my dad passed. I got a little something, everything else went to my bonus mom, right? I love her to death, right? Mm-hmm. But, I'm married. I'm blended with my wife, and over time, we've blended our finances, right? Well, if something happens to us, there's certain claims that spouses can make because now something that was separate property became community property, right? And I'm a God-fearing man, so if that's what happens, that's what happens, in my sense. But when I'm talking to my clients, it's a totally different scenario. Mm-hmm. If you want to preserve and protect what you're leaving not only to your kids, but to your grandkids, you don't want anything to go outright to your children. Yeah. Because once it goes outright, and it's not necessarily divorce where this comes in, where I see it more relevant, is death. Because if the inheritance I received from my parent if I pass away, is going 100% to my wife. We have 3 little kids. She's going to have to, she doesn't have to remarry. She'll be fine, right? But I've been told her, I'm like, be happy in life.
Mm-hmm.
Have our kids have a great fatherly figure, right? Marry a great man after me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Find another one, right? And she could leave what I left her to that new spouse, and that new spouse could remarry. And so that's that theory of it goes from me to my kids, but then it starts going horizontal. Whether death, divorce, you're complicating. And as a parent, you can't control who your kid marries. And I tell clients all the time, your kids are probably great together. They're probably great people. They probably have a great relationship. You are likely a fantastic parent just based on what your kids are doing now. I can usually determine, right? Like, you're a good person.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell your kid who to marry. And it's usually the in-laws that cause the most drama when someone dies.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we want to, put a pretty dome around that family line and legacy, then we leave it in trust to people. So again, to me, in my entire career, I've not been as focused on what's your dollar amount. It's what do you want to protect from?
Yeah.
Right. But then dollar amount does come in sense when I have someone that's, say, $250,000, they don't own a home, they have good long-term care policies, so thank goodness we don't have to do long-term care planning, but they don't need a trust.
Right.
That's causing more headache, because the alternative to a trust is just have everything beneficiary designated.
Yeah.
Fine. Right? If you have one child, have a will-based plan and do a transfer on death deed.
Yeah.
Right? If you own real estate at that point. So there's a lot of different options. It's just helping clients wrestle through what's important to them, what do they want to leave behind, and how do they want to leave it.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife and I talk about this all the time, and it's kind of a joke now whenever it gets brought up in conversation. But we talk about, when we got married, neither one of us had a ton of assets. She owned a little condo, and I didn't really own much of anything. So it's like, oh yeah, we'll get married.
You're married, you still don't own anything.
That's right. I still don't own anything. But yeah, we got married, signed the paper, all was good, and then we bought our first house together. And she had that moment where she was like, oh, it's real now. Like, the banks are involved and there's contracts involved, and now we're really married.
That's awesome. Yes.
One thing that you mentioned was the word probate. And, I hear all the time, like, people say probate and then they kind of like cringe. They're like, oh, probate. What exactly is probate, and why do people want to avoid it in the first place?
Yeah, great question. Probate is the court process which transfers our assets at death, right? And that's why I say a will go through probate, because there's a misconception from a lot of people that think, oh, I have a will, that's just how it will go. But the will is not technically a valid will until a court, and usually a judge at that point, says this is the last will and testament of this individual, right? So fortunately in Texas, probate can be simple. It can be straightforward. Sometimes it's not. It depends on, was the will executed with the right formalities? Was it witnessed? Was it notarized? Does it authorize an independent administration? I can't tell you how many times I see wills that in the notary block, right? So back up. So a self-proved will where I don't have to call any witnesses to the court. I can pretty well walk that through the court system fairly quick and easy. It'll take, depending on what county you're in, 60, 90, 120 days to get to a hearing, which names you as the independent executor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's you're now halfway through, okay? From halfway through the court-related issues, not even closely done with like tax issues or asset issues, things of that nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've seen a number of wills. So a self-proved will is one that is signed by the testator, the person making the will, is witnessed by 2 individuals, and is notarized. Now, there's a lot more into that. I'm not going to go read off a self-proven will right now, but just know there's certain online databases that when you have that self-proving affidavit signed at the back and it's signed by the testator, it's witnessed by two people, and it's notarized by the individual, courts have found those to be not valid self-proving wills because the notary block says the only signature the notary notarized was the testator's and not the ones of the two witnesses. So you have to be very careful about what is produced online still because it's not as specific to each state's law.
Yeah.
One thing makes a significant difference in what fees are now having to be charged. And again, usually the more proactive someone is, right? If they come in and want to avoid probate, they won't have to probate later, and they're paying less now than their family will later.
Yeah. And it's also going through, because at that point, even, 60, 90, 120 days, the markers you kind of set like an average, not only are you going through all of that stuff, but you're also grieving the loss of that family member. And it makes it so much more complex. It's so much harder. A lot of times people, I'm sure, are just like, I don't want to deal with this right now and just want to kick the can down the road.
100%. Happens all the time.
Yeah.
And they're trying to do things, right? Because most of the time we can hide our grief by going and doing things, right? It inevitably catches up with us all, right? You don't deal with it, but people find solace in the ability to go do things, and then you go meet with an attorney, they file the application. We have to wait at least 2 weeks, more or less, after we file our application before we can even get hearing dates. So you're already potentially a month in, and that's if you came in right away, right? We still have to wait for death certificates. Like, I can't probate a will if I don't know someone's actually deceased, right?
Yeah, my wife runs into that issue because they work with pensions, and they have to have proof of death as well, where, you can't just stop paying somebody just because somebody calls in and says stop.
Right.
There has to be some type of proof. So there's all kinds of interesting ways that they look it up, and yours obviously, I guess, requires the death certificate. So let's talk about the other side of what you do, and it kind of ties into this as well, where you can do wills, you can do estate planning for people, and sometimes, like you said, they're maybe W-2 employees, pretty straightforward. But then other times where you and I work a lot together is we run into people who are self-employed business owners, and then life is a lot more complicated because they have so much more going on. So at what point, if someone's getting into being self-employed, should they engage you? Because we both know, Mark, that people can set up their own businesses and they don't need an attorney to do it, and it's easy and all this stuff. We hear it all the time. So
there's the lawyer approach in me that says when they think of the idea, right? Because you chuckle, and I don't blame you, right? But they could have IP issues that they don't even recognize yet, okay? But now, you set that aside. Practically speaking, someone gave me this great advice when I was starting my own law practice, right? So my first boss gave me some startup capital, said, hey, go do this. Worked as practically a solo practitioner for about 2 to 5 years in there, and learned a lot. But this one individual came to me and said, money coming in has to be money going out.
That's pretty good advice.
Pretty solid advice, right? And so I understand the practicality of, hey, we've got to get this up and going. If you have a certain trade, you have a licensing deal. Obviously, you have to go get the schooling, you have to go pass the test, you have to get the license. But that can usually ramp up pretty quick after that. So doing planning at your initial thought of this is where I'm going, this is what I'm going to do. Once you take that leap of faith, you may not use the attorney a whole lot at that beginning point.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, you can go do it all online. If I'd give you some great legal advice to make things easier for us down the road, but go make your business. Right?
Yeah.
But figure out what team you want around you and then build from there.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're sitting there going, oh, I have this idea, I'm going to go create this, manufacture something, or I'm going to create a new service model, or I'm going to do something with AI and automation, right? Consult with someone, not just tax and legal, but financial, finding other individuals that have been there, done that. The benefit a lot of times of meeting with legal counsel is you're not our only client. We have probably seen something similar. If you need to know someone, we may have that individual you need to meet, which could help you scale your business.
Yeah.
Right. And because it's all about connecting people. That's a huge part about what both of us do. Right. Is if you only look at something in a bubble, you're missing the big picture. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of business owners don't want to come speak to an attorney because they think all the fees and complexity and all of that. There are, right? But it's manageable, I think, at the beginning. Yeah. Now, if you're a partnership, if you're 2 people, 3, 4 people, don't get into business with someone without getting a prenuptial agreement, i.e. a good company agreement, partnership agreement, something of that nature, because I forget the stat on, you may know the stat off the top of your head, like how many businesses fail.
Yeah, right? It's pretty high.
It's high.
Yeah.
And think about making something, having success with what you're doing, and then you hit a point down the road where, oh, we have conflict now. Or, oh, now I'm in business with someone's spouse or their kids, and the kid's not the best, but now they own part of the business and they think they have the right to say what to do.
Yeah.
Simple planning at the beginning solves bigger problems later, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that when I'm talking with people, because we're in the same boat here, where we want to make sure and advise when somebody should engage a professional at an appropriate time, because like you're saying, if I refer them to you, then that's a reflection of me. So I want to make sure that it makes sense. And I think that if you're going to break it down as simple as possible, and you can give me your opinion on this, your legal opinion, we'll put it on record. I think that if you are an individual and you're a sole proprietor, single member LLC, you're just doing something, maybe it's like you want to go mow lawns and it's just you and you're getting started and there's not a lot to it. Okay, at that point, sure, maybe you could go on LegalZoom and set up your own LLC and get started and say, I'll engage Mark down the road. But like you're saying, if you've got multiple people involved that are not married, even married can be complex, but especially if they're not married, or there's a complex issue, or kind of like you said, there's some type of technology involved, or basically the more complex you make it, the more needed the legal advice is needed on the front end, because as soon as it's worth something, it is way harder to get all of that put in place correctly.
It is. And there's, again, certain things you can do on the front end, which makes when they exit their business, because we all exit our business one way or another. Ideally, we have a substantial liquidity event and we all go right off into the sunset, buy our yachts and buy an island. Right?
That's the plan.
It's the plan. Doesn't always happen, but usually people will exit and get something. And then if they're serial entrepreneurs, they roll that into the next thing, or they roll equity, or, so there's a number of different facets there. But if you set up your structure a certain way now, knowing that you will exit because you will scale in the next 5 to 10 years, you can do unique planning on the front end, which makes that event later, from a tax perspective, a lot more favorable. And from a legal perspective, less red flags.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you talk about maximizing value for someone, the earlier you can do it, the better it is. So for example, another part of my practice is estate tax planning, right? When someone has going into next year over $15 million net worth, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it's very important how they structure things pre-liquidity. Okay, so they may only be worth 5 now, but they're going to sell to like HVAC, right? HVAC's so hot right now, right? And so they may be a $5 million business on book, but all of a sudden with the multiples and everything else, they're now 20, 30, 40, depending on the scale, depending on depending on what their books look like.
We can help with that.
That's true, and that's why I tell people, if you're 2 to 3 years out, you're in the prime time to fix things, minimize red flags and maximize your value later on,
Yeah.
right? If you're just starting out, we'll go through things, we'll educate, but go kill it in your business and let me know how I can help you, right?
Yeah.
And then you have those that are post-liquidity. Now they're under new ventures. They're doing different investments. You know, their planning went from all I do every day is run this HVAC business to now I can't run an HVAC business because I'm under a non-compete, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now they're doing different endeavors. And it's fun to continue walking through that path with them to navigate, okay, well, still, you're the only one that knows what's happening here. So we need to educate someone or a team of people so if something ever did happen to you, it's going to be smooth.
Yeah. Yeah, we've talked about that a lot within our business because we've got so many people involved, and it's difficult, you know, if you don't plan for it, even though everybody hopes a lot of these things never happen. If you don't plan for it, it's really difficult to address down the road when it does happen. Mm-hmm. So here's an interesting question for you. On the business side of things specifically, what is your favorite thing to do as an attorney?
I was about to go say something real legal and profound legally. But I think at the end of the day, the thing that brings me the most joy is being able to help my business owner reach where they're trying to get to.
Okay. And
right?
How do you do that?
And so most of it is being an outside counsel, outside advisor, right? So I don't litigate things, but I have had people call me, clients that I know call me and say, hey, this is happening. What do I do? And I have a team of people, fortunately, for the client and myself that love litigating, right? So I can connect them with those people, but I also know enough about what that will look like for me to help inform the client or give peace of mind now as we put a plan together, right? And sometimes that plan is, hey, you're going to get sued. Mm-hmm. Do you want to deal with it today or do you want to deal with it 2 years from now? 2 years from now, it's going to cost 5 times as much. Maybe we deal with it now, clean it out, and move on from here.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes that's because we use contracts that we shouldn't use because we don't want to pay an attorney.
Yeah.
Okay. They're great resources. I told someone the other day, they love going on to ChatGPT, making a contract. And I say, you know what you just did for me is you just made a term sheet because I'm about to go through and adjust a lot of that, but it gives me a great idea and insight into what are you looking to do? What are you trying to protect against? So I'm not saying don't use it. We all have to implement AI and automation some way, shape, form, or otherwise, but just know that shouldn't be the final product.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to get into the AI subject because I know that that's affecting or impacting your field a lot. So I want to kind of hear some of your thoughts on it. But one of the things that you've mentioned several times, and I actually didn't know you were a sole practitioner at one time, so that's pretty interesting, and it makes this question even more interesting, is you ultimately ended up becoming a partner at the firm that you're at now, which is a very large firm. So talk to me about maybe the differences between a sole practitioner, why you decided to go this much larger firm. What was the process like? Are there politics involved? What are all the complexities? Because you put yourself in a complicated situation where not only do you have a lot of people involved, you have a lot of intelligent people, and you have a lot of people with a lot of opinions, aka attorneys. So there's all kinds of things that go on. Why did you choose to join Clark Hill?
Great question. How much time do you have? No,
Right.
You know, my journey's been wonderful in the practice of law, and someone said it to me the other day when I was sharing my story with them, and it's just another individual that I know that has kind of become a mentor of mine. So, you know, I'm putting together my business plan going into next year. And you think, well, you're a member at a large firm. Why do you need a business plan? Well, because I'm an entrepreneurial attorney. It's how my mind works. I started out, I created my own firm. I hung my own shingle in year 2 through 5, which it was dumb. It was absolutely dumb, okay? But it was fantastic because it gave me the insight on what it's like year 1 through 3 for a business owner, and the struggles you go through of being the IT guy, the plumber, the filling the copier with the paper and printer because your assistant that day was out, right? And now you're the receptionist, right? So it was hard. It was so hard, but it was reflecting on being that solo practitioner was probably one of the more rewarding periods of my career, right? And I think I'm enjoying what I've done now by jumping to and being a partner at a 900 plus attorney firm, offices in Ireland, looking forward to that trip one day, offices in Mexico City. So, the value of being at the firm I'm at now is, and why I chose Clark Hill is the resources in the knowledge base. I almost did. I almost found something that I didn't think we could handle, right? But I was able to put the team together of the different attorneys that would serve that client.
Yeah.
So it's those resources of me finally really being at a point where I have definitely said this to you, okay? But for everybody else, one of the things I usually lead with referral partners or colleagues, friends, people that ask me, what do you do? I say, I'm going to solve your legal problem. Just don't commit a crime and don't get divorced. I have great referrals for those two, but outside of that, I'm truly at a firm that I feel I can do all of that. There's no problem that a client can bring me. And I challenge you. No, I'm just kidding. If you find something, bring it. Let's think creatively and out of the box. And that's what I found at Clark Hill. People that are normal attorneys, normal people that try to help and solve problems for our clients. And it's been a fantastic move.
Yeah. Do you ever run into issues with just internal struggles with partners where you guys kind of butt heads on things and have to work it out, or has it been smooth so far?
I'd say it's been smooth. And I'd say it's smooth because there's always bureaucracy, no matter where you're at. I mean, even when I served on the board of my church, right? There's politics, there's bureaucracy, but most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, people are there trying to do the right thing, right? And so, but you just have to learn how to adapt to that different business model. Whereas at a smaller practice, you want to go do something? Sure, go do it. When you're at a larger practice, let's think about the implications of this. And that's why currently, I've been at Clark Hill for just shy of a year and a half, right? And so I'm going into this next wave of life, not only because I'm going to have some time off at the end of this year for the birth of a child, but I'm going to have time to think about how do I want to build out my practice, not only next year, but the year after, right? I don't want to move again. Porting a book of business is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. And so, but once you get your feet set, once you find the groove, there's been nothing but growth. This has been a fantastic year for me. And so I want to continue that. And whereas year 2 through 5 of my practice was all about my Google ads and having clients come in the door through Google, the next 5 to year 11 of my practice, which is kind of where I'm at now, has all been about building relationships with people.
Yeah.
And so that filters who steps in my door. And it's been the clientele that comes in now is ready, willing, and able, whereas the clientele that came in when I was younger in my profession, granted, I had a baby face. You probably thought I was 18. Is he even a lawyer? If I didn't have my diploma and my license up on the wall, they probably would have questioned it more so. But now it's just a different arrangement. And, I'm so thankful for the people that have been there to support me along the way. Not only from referrals, partners and friends and colleagues, but mentors in the practice of law too, right? And helping me refine who I am as a lawyer and as I continue to grow as a lawyer. I read a book by Carol Dweck years ago, and I can forget the name of it now, but it all gets to, are you growth-minded or are you fixed-minded? And I think, go through phases in life where we're a combination of both or one or the other. And my goal in life has always been, since I read that book, to always stay growth-minded. There's always something I can continue doing to improve my inefficiencies. Mine, my team's, right? So it's being able to recognize this is the shortcoming. Now, how do I solve that problem?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, in my industry as well, it's very common for people to go out on their own. But then the flip side of that is the most extreme, joining as a partner of like a big four accounting firm. And, a lot of people everybody falls somewhere in between those two spectrums. And I went through a very similar experience where I didn't actually go out on my own, but it was a decision of, do I want to be on my own? Do I want to join a larger firm? And I'm actually really glad that I did decide to join a firm that was already established because, like you said, it's just different challenges. Regardless of which direction you go, you're going to have challenges and complications within your career. But I really like all of the things that you have to think through when considering other people, when trying to decide what's best for like a larger firm versus like you and one or two employees. I like the challenge of having all of those additional complexities with a much larger firm. And I think one of the things that I really enjoy in my life, and it sounds like this is a lot of what that book is I like to challenge myself to think, okay, contrary to what I may think at home sometimes, I'm not always right. And if I'm not always right, then like why does that person think differently than me, and trying to understand them? And I really enjoy that side of business and that side of working with people within a business and trying to, make both people happy.
Definitely. And I think a lot of that starts with who are we hiring and who are we, who are our co-owners? Do we really know them? Right? One of the things that I did years ago that I wish we did a lot more of in the practice, but is with any kind of new hire having personality assessment, personality tests, like, and enneagrams, all of those things where you learn who someone is and you learn at least closer to what type of person they are. So when I stepped onto the board at my church, this was right after law school, phenomenal experience to be 25, 26 years old as a, what we call the session, but it's effectively the board of directors for on the church. And one of the things we had to do when we came on is take that assessment. They did it that year. And it was amazing to look around the table and go, mine, I believe, was like, I'm a challenger and I'm an advocate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an
surprise.
Attorney. Surprise. The next one was I was a peacemaker and then a reformer. Right. So, but you went around the table and you saw a lot of people had the same characteristics, but when they were explaining, when this individual says this and they're like, well, we should just do this. And then Mark goes, well, what about that? Mark's not trying to be mean.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way his brain is approaching the situation is when everyone around the table says, yes, 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 I'm going to pause and go, well, have we considered this other thing? Have we considered this nuance? Right? It's that devil's advocate, which again, I'm an attorney. That's how our brains are trained, right?
Yeah.
But I think as an owner, and even me myself, as an entrepreneur, you're trying to go out and build up a team. Because the more you can pass off to your team, the more you can expand, the more you can grow, right? If you're having to do every little thing, you're that year 1 through 3 person who's trying to get their business up and running. Whereas now all of a sudden, if you're not trying to do the legal, you're certainly, please don't try to do the tax work, right? But you're building up your team, and your best asset are the people around you.
Yeah.
And so get to know them, help them be better at what they're doing, and then let them teach the next one.
Yeah.
Because once you identify talent, you don't want talent to leave.
Yeah.
You've got to retrain and repurpose. Like, it's like people ask, we've had a big discussion at the firm on AI in automation, and is it going to replace jobs? Maybe, but are you going to train to know how to use it? It may not replace it today, and this may be down the road, but the notion in my mind is it will do the things that no one enjoys doing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And so if I can't find someone to do something, I'm going to figure out a way to automate it. which is what I'm currently working on that right now, right? And working with our IT team of like, how do we seamlessly make this occur? We have all the tools to make it happen, but all of our tools don't talk the way they should, right? And so it's how do we roll this out in a systemized manner? Because you can't just say, here's how it's going to be tomorrow. It's bad news when you do that. You've got to let people roll into things. So you slowly roll it out. And then eventually people recognize and they grasp and they adapt. People are resilient and they go on.
So are there, we'll hop into the AI stuff. So on the tax side, what I do, there's a lot of softwares that are specific to tax where you can kind of give like bullet point scenarios and it will give you a general answer. And then you have to take that answer as a professional and know how to apply it to the situation that you're in with the client, because a lot of the nuances of that particular individual, there's at least where AI currently is, there's no way it knows how to interpret that and give you a 100% correct answer.
Right.
Is that similar in your field where you can kind of plug in general information about maybe a partnership agreement that you have a few people that are trying to start a new business where you can plug it in and it will give you a basic skeleton and then you can plug in the pieces that are important within the deal?
A couple different facets with that. Kind of three different scenarios. One is a ChatGPT scenario, which we don't use for client stuff, obviously. Right?
Yeah,
but
make sure everybody knows that.
We don't use your client stuff for that, okay? But I would be an idiot if I didn't use it in my practice. Why go spend, for my client's sake, and they're paying me to do this, so why go spend an hour and a half researching statutes for a unique issue dealing with this client when I can get to the 3 statutes faster? And then I go pull case law. I go do the in-depth research or get the treasury regs if we're doing estate tax, gift tax issues, right?
Yep.
But why not speed that process up, right? So I'll do a ChatGPT deal, but the other 2 deal with some AI software we have at the firm, which is secure. It's on its own. It's what I call the closed source network, right? Yep. Where you can create documentation. But we've had that for quite a while, right? Form building software. Yes, people use it. Attorneys use it. We have templates. We have that. But you're paying for the experience of knowing what this is. So we're not recreating the documents every time, okay? Where I find value with that software is, especially with my estate planning clients who had a trust set up in 2011, 2012, where the estate tax, again, we just went through this last year, right? Or this year. The estate tax, is it going away? Is it resetting? What's going on with the estate tax number, right? They did all these complex trusts, which now they are completely irrelevant for that family. Sometimes they're still relevant, but a lot of times they were overplanned because they were going into the planning season of, well, we don't know what this will be next year, so we need to plan as if it's worst case scenario.
Yep.
Okay. And so what this software allows me to do is take an 80-page document, right, which would take me a few hours to really truly navigate and get through, because I've learned in practice that there's usually a sentence or paragraph that's not in the main section you would expect it to be, but is buried later in the document that causes the issue. Okay. But I can throw this in the software and it'll print out a bullet point with footnotes on where in the document it read what it read. So it's not just throwing it in there and having it regurgitate what is it saying. It's citing to the source, right? Because count how many times, this happens almost weekly, I feel like, in the practice of law, or was until recently, where attorneys were getting in trouble because AI was making up case law that didn't actually exist. And a briefing attorney in the appellate court found it and said, this isn't even a real case, right?
Yeah.
So we do have kind of that software that allows us to be more efficient, to be more valuable now to our client, because we're not having to spend 2-3 hours reading something and ensuring that it actually says what it's supposed to say.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, some of the people that are listening definitely understand this. Some definitely won't. Where, I I read a lot of tax law specifically. You read a lot of general law or other different areas of the law. But what happens is you have to read what exactly the client's asking you to do. And like you said, that takes a while. And then after that, then you have to go find all this supporting documentation. And what people don't understand, or maybe they do, and it's the frustrating part of what you and I do, is you'll read this long case or all of this documentation, and like you said, it'll be one sentence. Not only will it be one sentence, but within that sentence, it'll list out 4 things, and then it will be and, or. And because of the difference in that one word, it can completely change the outcome of what the question is. And that's kind of what a lot of people, may misunderstand about AI is, yeah, it will get rid of a lot of stuff. You and I both know that that's inevitable for both of our career paths. Yep. But it's knowing how to interpret that and then ultimately finding a actual case that exists, not a just made up case.
Bingo.
To support what you're trying to accomplish. Those are the things that will inevitably be around for a very long time, because AI will not replace the people that can do those things.
No, they can't. And they can't yet. Yeah. Do what people have done for 20, 30 years of their career. So here's my ChatGPT example. So I have an individual who, if you don't know what a ROBS is, it's a rollover.
We don't like ROBS at the firm.
Yeah, you do or don't?
Don't.
No, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Rollover business startup. So you use your 401k, you roll it over into a C Corp. C Corp acquires the business assets of something else. Now you have a business that's owned by a retirement plan, effectively. It's kind of the long story short.
Yep.
So I have experienced those in the past, haven't actually dealt with someone who is navigating what to do with that, because we don't want it in that, right? And so how do you effectively navigate that process, right? And so I go into ChatGPT because I'm like, okay, where in the code is this most relevant? So I find my statutory references. I go in while at the same time emailing my firm going, does anyone have an experience with these? So I can get a better fundamental knowledge on where this is at and where it's going. So I find something in chat. I'm throwing all these questions to ChatGPT and it's pumping out all this information. And I'm like, uh-oh. The solution, the end goal of where the client wants to go per ChatGPT and what I've seen in the law isn't applicable. Okay? Doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, go talk to the expert. So I have someone on my team that is like an expert in this area of law, right? And so I go through and walking on through all the bases, and he goes, but Mark, this one sentence right here says reference that code section. And I was like, well, I didn't have time to reference it yet because you were on my phone call next, right? It was kind of what it turned out to be.
Yeah.
It was like, I would have gotten to it, but he's the expert. I'm going to jump on the phone with him. He's available. Let's chat. Get better actual person to person, someone who's been doing it for a few decades, right?
Yep.
And he goes, well, there's an exception over here buried into this paragraph over here.
Yep.
That allows you to do exactly what you're trying to do.
Yep.
So experts are there for a reason. People are there for a reason. It's the experience that individuals, much like ourselves, our professionals bring, which help you get to the right answer in honestly a faster fashion. Think about and I took care of the client on this, discounted some fees, right? Because if I would have just picked up if I would have just been able to connect with him before, but again, we live in an instantaneous world. If you don't have an instant answer, you're not expected to, like, your reliability and your reputation seems to suffer, right? And we don't want to ever give an answer without doing research. So that's why I said, and I'm not bashful, I'm not bashful enough to say I don't know. Let me go research this, because I'd rather give you the correct answer from the beginning than have to try to roll that back. But that's where I think AI and all that, it's a tool, right? I think we all use it. If you don't, you need to start getting proficient at it, because one of the things like we talk about, I don't know if y'all talk about this, is I don't know if I'd hire and this is probably 10, 15, 20 years from now, I don't know if I'd hire an associate attorney or if I just hire a data entry person.
Yeah.
Someone that can write well enough to communicate with the AI software or the robotic software that we use at the time to get the end result we're looking for.
Yeah. The podcast that I listen to, that's one of the hot topics is, you've got all this time that it takes to become a CPA or an attorney or some type of actual professional that requires all the schooling, and they're not really useful because AI can do so much of what, or like you said, maybe 5-10 years will be able to do basically their job. So then it's this friction of when is it necessary, when is it not? And I think at some point, both of us are going to have to ask that question and come up with a good answer of, we want to have people coming up so that you can hand the reins off to somebody else, and you want to continue to invest in the next generation just for the feel goods, I guess. But what is that balancing point where you're running a profitable business, but also trying to invest either in the next generation or invest in the next people that will take over the business? And it's definitely going to be a unique balance. So
it is. The event I was at this morning talked about a little bit of that, right? And talked about, the biggest crisis we have, at least here in North Texas, not today, but 10 years, 20 years from now, is an educated workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And how if you don't focus on educating the next wave of individuals to think critically and to develop skills that are beneficial for the world we are entering, you're losing talent. Same with like law schools. I didn't take a single law school class that taught me what to do with business development. And that's a crying shame.
Yeah.
It's a crying shame, right? Fortunately, I had a father that was an entrepreneur-minded individual that helped instill some of those, like, hey, So, for example, when I was filling out my first job application at Kroger, right, to be a bag boy, because I had to have a job to have a car and all of that jazz, and my allowance wasn't cutting it for taking out the trash, right? So I had to actually go do something with my life at 15, 16. I was filling out the questionnaire. My dad came in my room and he said, well, what are you doing? I'm like, well, filling out a job application. One of my good buddies works there now. They said they're hiring. I'm filling out an application. He goes, well, what are they asking you? And the question that was there when he asked me that was, do you care what other people think of you? And he just asked me, well, what'd you answer? I was like, no, I know who I am. I don't care what they say. He was like, that's not the right answer. And here's why.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you're going to be in sales the rest of your life. I don't care who you are. You are selling who you are as a person, whether that's to a significant other, to friends, to clients, to other professionals, to referral partners, whoever. Your reputation does matter, and you should care about how other people view you and what you do. And it changed that one. I mean, that's still a vivid memory of mine, of my father's, that reshaped how I approached everything after that. And granted, I was about to go to college. I was a senior in high school. I knew everything, going to college, I knew everything. And then you have humbling experiences in your mid to late 20s, right?
Yeah.
Which is generally why I tell clients, don't let your kids have their inheritance before 25, especially them boys, okay?
Yep.
It takes us a lot longer to mature, okay?
Yeah.
My daughter at 5 is more mature than I was at 22, okay?
Yeah, that's a good point. So let's hop into kind of wrapping up here with just some general questions about you. So you mentioned your family a lot. What are some of the things that you enjoy doing with your family? Maybe traveling or just activities. What do you like to do?
Make more family members, apparently. Going on number 3, we just like to have more kids. No, I joke about that. A lot of it are the small moments that in the midst of the absolute chaos make you pause and just go, I'm the luckiest man on earth. When you see your 3-year-old son and his uncle who lives in Colorado, who comes back to hang out for a boys' day, and your son have a phenomenal day, doesn't melt down, is just with the boys, with the homies, all that kind of good stuff. And you see him at lunch, and my brother, his uncle, was kind of sneaking off French fries, and I kind of popped him. I go, dude, ask him for French fries. Just ask him. And he asked my son, and my son just grabbed a huge stack of French fries and put it on his plate. It was like, that's awesome. And it made my brother almost break into tears. He's like, okay, I got to come back to Texas to hang out with this nugget. Like, he's a cool kid, right? And obviously, I mean, my rock is my wife and my faith, right? And so we met because God put us together and made that happen in that moment, in that chaos of that time, gave me a daughter in one of the darkest moments of my life, right? And so it totally transforms. That's why I always joke about pre-COVID, post-COVID. My life now began during COVID. In January of 2020, getting married in July of 2020, having my daughter in November of 2020. My entire new life, adulthood, manhood, I would say, started at that point and has been phenomenal ever since. And so I just give thanks.
Yeah. We have to title it The Sentimental Lawyer. That's what we're going to title the episode.
I deal with death and so, yeah, you know, Grim Reaper gets sentimental, you know.
That's good. So before we wrap up with the last question, I always forget to do this, and we want to make sure people can reach out. So for anybody who is looking for an estate attorney or a business attorney or any attorney, sounds like you have a good recommendation for them. How can they reach you? Where can they find you? What's the best way?
Yeah, I mean, I probably should have a better social presence, but usually at this point in my career, if you search my name on Google, I'll pop up. If you type in Clark Hill, you can search the website there. So most of the time, it's just people searching for us through Google or other means of that nature. So
sounds good. And yeah, so estate planning, business, those are your specialties, but anybody that needs an attorney, Mark's a good resource for that. He's got lots of great attorneys on his team. So then the last question that we always wrap up with is if you can give advice to somebody just starting who's been in business a long time, or maybe they're just kind of figuring things out along the way, what's the best advice you can give to an entrepreneur?
To an entrepreneur or to a attorney?
You can do both if you want.
Okay. I'll do the attorney first because that's the first thing that came to mind because I'm currently doing that with a young man. And he's wrestling with, does he want to do law? Does he want to do other things? He's interested in it. And I told him, another colleague of mine and I talked to him, and it was learn as much as you can about what that really means. What is the day in the life of that individual? Go talk to professors at undergrad or at law school. Do research. Truly figure out, is this a path you want to do? Right?
Yeah.
For the entrepreneur, it's build out the team. Build out the professionals, not just me, but the CPA, your wealth team. Build out a team of people, which also includes your staffing team that can succeed you. Because the number one thing you don't want to lose if you pass away or you become incapacitated, because we're more likely to become incapacitated, is you don't have the team there that can continue the success of your business. That is also beneficial when you go to sell your business. Because if you're selling to someone like private equity, they don't want to come in here and actually manage your business. They just want to reap the table. They want rake the table. All right. And so, and the other one is typically the professionals in the team that you create will help you think critically about problems you're having currently.
Yeah.
Because they've seen it, they've talked to others about it, they've probably gone through it. So they can help you navigate success in your business. So
great advice, Mark. I think even the attorney friend that you're helping out there, I think that's even great advice for anybody who's looking to become an entrepreneur in a specific field. Talking with people who have been around a long time that know what the real day-to-day looks like. That's great advice. Thanks so much for coming on. It's been great.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate you.